Hi, and welcome to today's ongoing presentation in our series, Navigating the AI Landscape. Today, we're going to be looking at customer insights from the Microsoft Work Trend Index. My name is Chris McNulty. I head up strategic markets at Synozur, and I'm really pleased to be joined today by Jill Hannemann, who I'll be introducing here in just a minute. So today, we're going to look at the findings from Microsoft and from Synozur from a customer perspective, taking a look at how Jill's organization approached Copilot, what they've found, and I think there'll be a lot of interesting things that you learn along the way. So as we get started, just a reminder that Synozur is a boutique advisory agency that focuses on transforming business and management for its clients. And it looks at all parts of that journey, whether it's financial, leadership, company operating system technology, and more. It's a really exciting way to be able to plug into the traditional technologies, of course, but also many areas that are just fascinating to be able to leverage to help organizations achieve more. And so you can learn more about Synozur at www.synozur.com. That said, let's get to our star of today's broadcast, Jill Hannemann. Jill, thanks for joining us. Could you just take a minute and introduce yourself for our audience?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Jill Hannemann. I am the manager and platform owner of our M365 and collaboration services over at the Capital Group. The Capital Group is an investment management services firm, and we currently manage over 2.5 trillion in assets under management. And so our goal really is to ensure that everyone is able to achieve their personal financial goals through smart investing.
Yeah, that's a large base of managed assets. I remember 20 years ago, the mutual fund company I was working for was really excited when they crossed the $50 billion line. Now, money is more today, but I know from your speaking with me before that obviously security and privacy is so important to ensure trust with your clientele. And I know that's something we're likely going to bring up here in just a minute or two.
Yes, definitely. Compliance and information security are probably the two topics that I confront daily with unstructured data.
Awesome. So let's get right into it. So earlier this year, Microsoft published the Work Trend Index. Now, the Work Trend Index, or WTI, is published by WorkLab. It's a Microsoft think tank that was created nearly 5 years ago to conduct research on the state of modern work and all the ways the technology interacts with it. So over the course of the WTI, they've dug into topics like what does instantly remote work look like for many organizations, which will probably sound familiar if you think back on 2020, and other topics throughout the years around security and surveillance and return to work and employee experience. AI has been a key topic for the WTI. And earlier this year, Microsoft published their findings based on their research cohort of 31,000 people and signals from its telemetry and academic research. And so there's a couple of things in here, Jill, I wanted to really spotlight and then get your impression of. So some fairly surprising numbers that 3/4 of knowledge workers are using AI in some capacity. But amongst those, nearly 80% are using their own privately acquired tools, not things they're getting from the organization, but usually consumer tools like ChatGPT, Anthropic, and the rest. And definitely some interesting findings about where leadership is, that they are feeling a little bit behind on having a plan, that AI is being pushed on them without being sure that they've thought through all of the privacy and cybersecurity issues, and seeing a lot of promise in AI, but those skills and training being hard to find. So I'd love to just have you take a minute and give us kind of your impression of this, colored by your experience at Cap Group.
Well, the first one that stands out to me is the 60% of leaders worry that their organization lacks a plan. And I like
Hmm.
to think that we are in the 40% where our leaders are not worried because we do have a plan. And that's one of the areas that CAP Group has been really focused on. We, from the very beginning, started developing and creating our own steering committees around generative AI, and it includes all of the senior business leaders from across the business who are representing the different areas of Capital Group. And
Hmm.
so, this is definitely an area where we understand we're taking a risk by incorporating AI so much into our work and our business processes, but it's one that we're taking very thoughtfully, and we're monitoring that risk and trying to be really careful. So, then we take a look at 75% of workers using AI at work. It feels a little high.
Hmm.
It feels a little high, and I mean, I suppose it's commensurate with a lot of individuals leveraging personal tools on their
Hmm.
own devices.
Hmm.
I would say that that's probably not necessarily in line with the statistics that we see for my M365 Copilot usage in our company.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I know that we are not leveraging personal tools just simply because of how important security and privacy are to our environment. So we don't leverage a lot of opportunities to allow for shadow IT.
Yeah, I think that's an approach that certainly resonates with me. Um, it never makes sense to me for an organization to kind of invest the time and care at getting your security posture, your compliance posture, your privacy posture where you want it to be. And that's not a cost-free thing. There's not an easy button on that. It's usually been honed over years and then just, you know, cast it all to the wind by pushing that information across your trust boundary. Um, I think it's one thing, you know, when people would email files, that's a historic way of doing it, but that's fairly discreet. I think opening up a wide swath of private information to be indexed and indexed into these external models, um, that's just not anything that we were thinking about, you know, 10 plus years ago when we were talking about the challenges of migrating from on premises to cloud. Um, and I remember some, you know, the the presentations that I remember a presentation you did on the East Coast, a few years back, where you talked a lot about minimizing rot, redundant, obsolete, and trivial data. Um, here you want to minimize. I don't have a clever acronym. That critical data. I think you want to not just minimize, eliminate the chance that that's getting moved now that you brought it to cloud out to the AI world without the right controls.
Well, that's one of our primary concerns. All of our proprietary information, all of the secret sauce, everything that makes Capital Group good at what they do. We want to make sure that that's not getting into large language models out there in the ether. But I mean,
Yeah,
looking at the 75% of knowledge workers using AI at work today, I mean, another thought that crosses my mind is that's a huge change management endeavor really there. If you're looking at getting folks using AI effectively, we have multi-generational workforce who not everybody feels comfortable using AI yet. And so that number does feel high.
yeah. I think that it is pretty broad. There's a lot of AI beyond just generative AI. And, I'm quite certain that number includes people who once in 12 months use ChatGPT to compose a limerick for their boss's birthday. I'm not sure that it's the kind of hopefully transformative usage that you get. And, you invoke an interesting question about, um, you know, when you have a properly governed implementation and looking at those usage and adoption levels, like making sure it's going to the right purposes, something I think the audience would love to hear more about. So one thing I am really excited to learn from you is when you think about um, the CAP group's journey with generative AI, particularly with Copilot. Um, I know that you took a lot of care kind of building a pilot, figuring out what lessons were important, and then working through a deployment plan. Can you kind of share with us, how the pilot got started and how you were able to govern AI during the pilot?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we got into the early adopter program for
Hmm.
Microsoft 365 Copilot probably in around October. So I think we were in like a second wave or third wave. I don't know, but
Hmm.
we immediately got to socializing this with a lot of our senior leaders, and people could not wait to become a member of
Really?
the EAP. There was
So what did
so much
you?
excitement.
Yeah,
There's so much hype.
I mean, I've seen both ends. Like, hey, um, we brought Copilot in, and it becomes sort of this lab curiosity that people once in a while use inside teams. What did you say to them to get them so excited?
I think folks saw a lot of the marketing material from Microsoft and the promise
Hmm.
of, you know, auto-populated Excel spreadsheets, formula generation, all of the email writing, the meetings capabilities, the meeting transcription, AI notes capabilities. I think everybody saw those productivity gains and got really excited about kicking the tires.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
what
I
we
mean,
ended up,
I was going to
oh,
say,
and
having contributed to many of the Copilot launches last year, like it's great to hear that it connected, but I know that we set the bar pretty high on what those expectations are going to be. Uh, you were saying a little more on the pilot there.
well, we were very sensitive to make sure that we were getting a good cross section of the business.
Hmm.
And we wanted to bring in certain personas, certain workforce personas into the pilot so that we could have them try out some of the daily work practices and processes that they do,
Yeah.
leveraging Copilot, and ask them to try and transform and work Copilot more into their daily work. And
So yeah,
we got a lot
can I
of
ask you about
interesting
that?
feedback
Because
there. Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting. When you're putting people into the pilot, what was more important, like getting a breadth of functional coverage or getting a breadth of level coverage from different seniorities throughout the organization?
So I think we really had to satisfy both,
Okay.
because there were definitely a lot of senior leaders in the pilot, and a lot of that was given their sponsorship of the effort and
Yeah.
the leadership driving the agenda, which I think is really important to building alignment around our future with generative AI. But then also functional was so huge because we needed to get some of these folks to help us build use cases. We needed
Mhm.
them to tell us where it was effective and if it was going to help them save some time in their day.
Yeah. So, I want to look forward to getting this out at scale since obviously the pilot sounds like it was successful since you took the next step. What did you learn from the pilot that had an impact on the way you chose to roll Copilot out at scale?
Well, so after the pilot, or I guess you could say during the pilot, we did a lot of focus groups with the
Hmm.
300 who participated. We got a lot of feedback. During the pilot, we learned a lot about what ring we needed to be in for all of our Office apps, and what versions were working with what feature of Copilot, et cetera, and what we needed to do to handle some of the tech debt that we had across the enterprise. So we ended up getting a lot just very tactical learnings. But
Hmm.
then I would also say, we gathering the feedback from the early adopter participants helped us refine those personas and use cases for the enterprise rollout. But then those EAP users became our change champions. And so that's
Got it.
and we leverage them in order to help evangelize how to use Copilot in the specific type of work that they do, beyond just sort of the basic, it can generate an email type use case.
Yeah. So, I know first impressions are really hard to shake. And I'm going to ask you a question, and I think I will know your answer, and it won't hurt my feelings. Did you discover that Copilot, in its form, certainly last year, didn't exactly do everything that we showed in our demos last year for Microsoft?
I think there was definitely different levels of maturity of the co-pilots in different apps and the presence of Copilot in different locations. And so we realized that fairly early on. And there wasn't a whole lot of judgment associated with it negatively internally.
Right.
And
Okay.
I think the promise of where this is going to go, of what is going to continue to get added to Copilot, is still a stronger emotion for everyone than having that negative first impression. This isn't worth the snuff.
Got it. So, from the outside, it would be interesting. How did the deployment go? Like, how long did it run? Did you just send an email out to everyone like, here's Copilot, good luck?
So after the EAP, we did our follow-up and whatnot, but we immediately began planning our enterprise rollout. So we went, engaged, we bought all the licenses, and we set a really aggressive date for ourselves, which was going to be just within a couple of months of us completing the EAP. And so we did a 10,000 person rollout, and we did it with fanfare. We had a marketing campaign designed around it. We had senior leaders give testimonials on how transformative this technology is going to be for our business. And we started a training campaign kind of leading up to the big reveal day, where we are going to enable everyone's licenses. And so we really wanted to build up the hype. It was, a really big deal. We changed the banner on the intranet page to have Copilot highlighted. So it was a really exciting time.
So it sounds wonderful, and like when I kind of reflect back, so you've been working hands-on with Copilot and its various iterations for about the past year. To get to the success level that you're at right now, if you had one piece of advice to give yourself a year ago, what might that be?
Have our Microsoft technical specialists on speed dial.
Okay.
For anything that was going wrong. No, I mean, I'm painting kind of a rose-colored
Right.
version of the rollout, and there was a lot more behind the scenes that we did to prepare for this. There was a lot of conversations with legal. There was a lot of conversations with compliance. We had to do an information security review. We did a PII scan across the environment to make sure that overly sensitive content wasn't being shared. And so there was a lot going in, and I would have told myself a year ago, don't get overly ambitious with your other goals, because a lot of your time is going to get spent here, and for good reason, because I think that this is I think we're at the beginning of a really exciting journey to transform the way our associates work.
Yeah. One of the pieces of data Microsoft likes to point to, oddly, is that users say it's worth more than a free lunch. Has Copilot been worth more than a lunch to you?
I'd say aggregately over time, it's continued to be a nice co-pilot. literally. And I
Yeah.
mean, I think that that's really how we frame it internally, that it's your co-pilot, it's your assistant, your digital assistant. It's helping you connect the dots. It's helping you get to things faster, or give you help you get past that blank screen,
Yeah.
that first cut.
Sure. One last question, because I know in your role, you're looking at more than just the co-pilot rollout for the organization, but looking at all aspects of, the digital workplace. When you think about adding AI and Copilot to that mix, what are you hoping that the CAP group can achieve over the next 1 to 3 years that hasn't been possible before?
I am hoping that we're able to automate little processes that are still
Hmm.
paper-based
Yeah.
across the organization. And I hope that, it's still sort of that promise of low code, no code, right?
Yeah.
And getting that digital assistant, and how can we help enable the business to accomplish and automate some of the things that still are paper-based.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was coincidentally a week ago. I was in Washington D.C. and I was at the Chief AI Officer Summit, and I was talking to the keynote speaker there, Florin Rotar, who's the Chief AI Officer at Avanan. And what you said is actually almost exactly what he said. Like, he loves the productivity boosts, but he's really excited by, using AI to be able to deliver these optimized processes that have been really hard to modernize across the organization. So I think that's lovely. Well, Jill, thank you very much for spending some time with us right now. I just wanted to encourage those of you who are listening this far. We have a number of resources from Synozur that you can take advantage of. As we like to say, no obligation, including like a free workshop to help you think through the elements of AI as you get into annual planning cycles. Whenever your annual planning cycles need to kick off, that's a place where you can sign up and get some free help from some of the good folks that I work with here at Synozur. We've recently published our white paper called Navigating the AI Stratosphere, which is looking in more detail at some of the findings of the WTI, some of Synozur's own research, some of the things that we've encountered in our journeys with customers, kind of brought up into one neat pocket. And there's going to be a lot more to come. We just published a blog post this week about the role of the chief AI officer. And the best way to kind of keep tabs with all of these things and more is to follow us on social. And you can find all of that at synozur.com, where you can also sign up for ongoing pieces of information. So, Jill, once again, it's been an absolute pleasure to spend some time with you this afternoon. Look forward to being able to catch up offline with you soon, and hope all is well with you. Thanks again.
Thanks, Chris.